Alright, hi everyone, welcome back to another tutorial of Salesforce Makes Sense. This is Himanshu and we are continuing our Lightning Web Components Masterclass. In the previous tutorial, which was a pretty long one, we covered and understood very nicely what is data binding, one-way binding and two-way binding, where we passed information from the JavaScript to HTML, and then we also accepted input from the user on the HTML, passed it to the JavaScript, which in return gave it back to the HTML, right? So two-way binding is more or less done, and we have done a good chunk of variables that we have here that we have created and we have leveraged and used. I want you to take a look at one more concept, which is called getters and setters. All right, now what you notice here right now are plain variables, and you basically use these variables to assign values, or you use methods to assign values to them, and then you kind of use that particular variable in your HTML classes, right? HTML templates. Now, what if you did not want to do that, or what if you had a requirement wherein you have to do some sort of like expressions, right? You don't want to do it in a static kind of a way, right? So what if I told you that we could define a function that, handle minutes watched, all right? And this method could actually do this bit 15 to 10, right? So this would basically be total lessons watched. Again, this should be this dot multiplied by 10. How about this, right? This would be good, right? And if I were to able to return this value as a expression result, I could always call this method and get the final value, right? Now, to be able to do this, you have to create a function, but you always don't have an event. What will you click? What will you submit? What will you change? You might not have that facility available, right? In that case, what you can do is you can actually make this a getter method. Instead of a actual method, you can use it, you can call it a getter method. When I say getter method, you can simply use this particular variable name in your HTML and leverage it. As simple as that. All right. So if I were to just get this here, I should be able to access this information, right? But how do I access it? I just have to tell the system that I want to get this particular information. So this becomes a getter instead of a plain method. All right. So this becomes a getter. What will happen now when the HTML is rendering, it will take a look at this particular variable. It will see whether this variable is defined or not. Okay, not defined, but is there a getter method defined for it or not? So a getter method is defined and it contains the same name. So it is going to look at this particular code and return whatever is evaluated. Now this dot total lessons watch is going to be 50, and what it will do is it will take the 50 value from here, multiply it by 10 and return 100. Make sense? So what I am going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and create another card down below, and I'll call it getter and setters. All right, and I'm going to close this card, and this is right where I want to get this value in. Right, I'll put it in a p tag so that it is a bit decorated. We can add some classes to it, and I'm just going to add the same class that I've been adding for the others, which is basically the padding around small, so that it looks a bit clean in terms of the spacing. Save, deploy. Let's see what happens. All right, now if I go back to my org and if I refresh, what I did is I actually moved all of this here so that we have space for more things. Yes, so now if you see, I have a new card here that's called getter and setters, and you see the value 500 is coming through the expression calculation that we did here, this right here. So I hope you understand how is this working, right? So you go to the HTML, you try to render this content, but handle minutes watched is a variable. Correct. By the time, as of now, what you know is this is a variable. So Himanshu must have declared a variable here, handle members minutes watched or whatever it is. But I did not declare a variable. I declared a getter method instead. All right. So even if you don't have a variable, you can simply use this getter method, and you can use anything inside it, whatever you want to show. Okay. It can basically be like this as well. So you can say the total watch duration is, and then you can just add this information here. You can do that. All right, so this is going to render the entire thing. Let's give it a try once. Let's see if my syntax is correct or not. So you see the total watch duration is 500. It is coming within brackets because I put the brackets here. I can get rid of the brackets. But if you notice what did I do? I used the tilde operator, this operator, like this is the right above the tab key. And then I added a string, I concatenated a dynamic value which I took from another variable and I multiplied it by using this expression within this curly brace. So the dollar symbol is to ensure that I am dynamically binding something with the curly brace. Alright, and I'm able to do this expression logic here. Instead of doing it in HTML, I can do it here and I have more control on what I want to return. Make sense? So now we have done getters, right? We have getters that allow you to return any kind of formulated or a transformed value. How about what if you could set values similarly, right? So a setter is another method, more like a special method that runs a value, that runs basically when a value is assigned to a property. So whenever a value is going to be assigned to that particular variable, right, that we have created a getter for or a setter for, this setter is going to evaluate, right? And again, this is used for validation, formatting, or even logic control. Cool. The only thing that you need to keep in mind when using getters and setters together for a specific scenario, that you have to use a backing variable. Now, what is this backing variable? Let's say you have this scenario right here, right? Handle minutes watched. So what am I going to do? I'm going to just say minutes watched. I'll just create this particular variable with an underscore. Okay. And I'm going to say get minutes watched, right? And I'm going to return whatever is the value in my backing variable, for example. And because this is a variable, I have to use this keyword, correct? So far so good. So let's say I define this value as this dot lessons, what is it? Total lessons watched multiplied by 10, right? I have just defined it here. Okay. Don't worry about the use case, just understand a bit about the syntax. Okay, that's enough. So what I'm going to do is I want to use a getter that's called minutes watched, right? I'm going to use that here. And how does that work out? I'm going to return the value, which is basically the same name. Because it is the same name, I need to ensure that I use a backing variable by using a prefix of an underscore. This way the system will not confuse itself. It is going to look at this particular variable, take a look at the expression and return it in the getter. Make sense? So for now, let's deploy this and let's see if things are still the same that they were. Like 500 should be still showing up, right? So I'm going to go back to my org. I'll just wait for it to deploy. Right? Let's go back. Let's refresh. The value is still 500. Makes sense? So the getter is working fine and the system or the platform runtime is able to understand that this particular backing variable is basically this variable. It is not the getter. If you do this dot minutes watch, it's going to confuse itself and nothing is going to return and it's going to fail. That's why you need an underscore kind of a variable, more like a backing variable, right? And you'll see the advantage of using this backing variable because getters is fine. When you use setters, and setters again, same thing, you have to use the set keyword. Set minutes watched, again the same name that you have here, right? That's how you write a setter. The only thing is with setters, see it's already giving an error. The setters expect you to have one parameter which is basically nothing but event. Why? Because when you're setting a value, you might be setting it from the HTML, right? Similar to how we were setting a value on the lightning input, we might be setting a same value here. So what we'll do is we'll try to do a lightning input. Type is equal to number, right? And on change, I am going to just call a method handle watch change. Let's say this should be with curly braces, and I'm going to close my lightning input, right? And when I do that, I want to be able to see what is the value after setter. And it is going to be the same minutes watched variable. I have to put a L here. That's why it's failing. Yeah, better. So now what have I done? I've simply used a lightning input where I can simply input something. I want to input something, and as soon as I input, I want an event to run. And when that event runs, I want my setter to be automatically called so that I can show you that the minutes watched value is getting updated through this particular setter. Okay, so let me just deploy at least this so that I see that there's no error. Deployed fine. Now, how do you use the setter? You actually have to use it to set some values, and you can even do validations here, right? So what are you going to do? You're going to say this dot, again, you have to use the backing variable because you're mapping some value, right? When you're setting a value, you're mapping it with the backing variable that you have. So this dot backing variable is equal to, now event dot target dot value is going to give me the number that the user has input, right? There should be a dot here, then the variable is showing up as used, right? So this is the value that is coming up here to the minutes watched variable. This is the variable that we are using, and getter setters, right? Now what is missing? The handle change is missing, the handle watch change. So handle watch change is basically here. It is also going to be expecting an event input so that it knows who has triggered it. And what I want to do is I want to use this particular variable, which is minutes watched. I'm going to say this dot minutes watched is equal to event dot target dot value. Now what did I do? I'm not using the backing variable here. Just understand, I'm trying to call the setter method because I'm setting a value. So when I do this, the setter is going to be called and the setter is going to map the value. If you want to see a very good example, I'll not do anything. I'll just take a hard code value and it should print 1000. Whatever be the case, it will print the value as 1000. Let's give it a try. Let's say deploy. Right? Let's go back. Let's refresh. And I'm going to just say, see, whatever I put, the value is going to be 1000. Why? What is really happening behind the scenes? When you go here, the minutes watched getter is being set. What is it being set to? By, okay, let me refresh. When I'm not doing anything, yeah, it is set to 500. Why? Because minutes watched on the HTML is looking for the getter. It's seeing, okay, getter is here, return this dot underscore minutes watched. What is this? This is a variable. What is this variable assigned to? Total lessons watched into 10. What is total lessons watched? 50. 50 into 10, 500. So it is returning 500 on the page load. So far so good, right? Now what I'm doing is I'm giving a provision to actually put an input. The user is putting an input here. So when they put any kind of input, this on change listener is triggering handle watch change. What is this doing? Handle watch change is calling the handle watch change method in the JavaScript. It is capturing the event dot target dot value and it is calling this dot minutes watched. Now what is this? Another variable in the JavaScript file. Now when you search for this variable, you are not seeing the same variable. You are seeing a getter setter block for it. So the backing variable is not this. It's basically this getter that and this setter that's being called here. Specifically, why will the setter be called? Because you are setting a value. You are assigning a value from the event.target to this variable. When you do that, this set call method will be called and it will assign this value here. Okay. What we can also do is we can simply say event.target.value if it is less than 1000, right? If it is less than 1000, then keep it event.target.value or else keep it 5000. This is basically the ternary operator. Okay. So what you do, you are checking with an if condition. If this is true, then if it is less than 1000, whatever be the value, just show it and print it in the setter, or else put it 5000. Anything beyond 1000, right? Let's give it a test whether it works or not, so that you will be able to see, yeah, okay, getter was called, the handle change was called, and then the setter was called to show you the final value. Let's refresh and let me do 560. Oh, okay, something is breaking. What is it? It's saying no error object. What did I mess up? Let's get rid of this event.target.value. I might have to convert it into an integer because it might be a string. I don't know. Let's see. And I'll just put right values. I mean, I'll put the bracket in the right places. So if this happens, then this or else this. Okay, let's go ahead and deploy. Fingers crossed. Let's see what happens. Let's get rid of this extra console logs as well. Refresh. Okay, this is still failing. Let's open the inspect element. Let's go to the sources and let's see what file is it. Data binding. So I'm going to say command P data binding.js, and you see here this is the code, right? So update member status get minutes bar. This is the code that I'm actually trying to run. This is where it's failing. So I'll put a debugger here, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run it again 5. So it's failing before this, even before this. So it's not even reaching the setter code, meaning it is event.target.value. I think this should also be integer parsed. ParseInt is basically nothing but converting the value into a number. Maybe it is a number issue because my Lightning input type is a number, but let's see. And that's with JavaScript, like, you know, you cannot rely on what kind of error is it going to show. So let's see, it's still failing. It's not going there. Let's see if I go to handle watch change, and now if I type 5, yeah, it's still not going there. There's something essentially wrong. It's going to be difficult to solve it. Let me just try to get rid of the syntax for now, and I'm going to just say event.target.value. Let's see. Okay, let's keep it simple for now. Let's see, deploy, because I've not parsed everything, right? So let me just get rid of this parseInt for now. I'll keep it simple. We'll use event.target.value. Let's see if it fails or not first of all. So now it should give you the exact value that you're printing on the input field. Okay, it is not going to hard code 1,000 or a 5,000 or do any kind of calculations. Yeah, so now if I come back here and I try to type 450, it's still failing. Something is wrong. Did I change something? What did I do? The getter is here, the setter is here. I'm calling minutes watched, which is this right here, right? The value is total lessons watched multiplied by 10, which is this value. Getter is being called perfectly fine because I can see 500 is printed, and then this method is being called. Let me try to print whether I'm reaching this line of code or not, right? Or we could just do a console log reached here, and then let's see. I don't think I can do a, let's try to do a console log here first, and then this should call the setter because I'm calling the same method. Is there a typo? Just see if there's a typo, but if there's not, this should work fine. Let's go back to the console, close everything. It's showing 500. If I type 5, see, it's saying reached here, meaning it is able to reach here, which is great. And then it should actually also reach here in this setter. Console.log. I think I understand the problem. This is going to pass as a value here, right? It's not going to be an event. So this value is what I want to map here. It should not be an event, I believe. Let's see. So the setter is going to be called with a value that has been given, right? It's not going to be an event again. So it is going to be a value, and this value is something that I want to capture, right? So let me try this out now. I think it was a problem with the event.target that I was using. It was might be a, you know, no object. That's the reason no object was showing up. Let's deploy. Let's see. Hoping this is the error, and I think this is the error. Let's see. Very difficult to compile these kind of errors when it comes to JavaScript, but yeah, I think we found it. And what I'm going to do is I'm also going to try what I was trying. If the value is less than 1000, show the value, or else show 5000 as a static value. I want to try this out as well. So let me just go ahead and comment it out for once so that we see the normal thing working fine. Deploy. Deployed fine. Let's go back, refresh. Let's close this window. Hoping there are no errors. Yes, there are no errors, right? So it all works as is, right? Now if you see, this is working as is. What I want to do is I want to actually do a criteria based validation based, you know, display. So if the value is less than 1000, I want to show the value as is, or else I want to show 5000. That's my ask, right? So the problem was here, this value. I hope you understood. I was capturing an event here, but it will never be an event because it will always be the value that is being passed from here to the variable which is calling the setter method. Refresh. Now let's see, if I do 450, it shows 450, but if I do 4500, it shows 5000. See, magical. So amazing, right? And that's how basically you can use getters and setters in your system. Again, not a hard and fast rule to use this every time, but it kind of makes your life easy whenever you are using any kind of formatted or computed variables in your HTML. So for example, you want to do uppercase, lowercase, check validations and then show the data. All those scenarios, it will come in handy. Okay, so if you take a look at the keynote now, so you'll need a backing variable, obviously prefix with the underscore, so that you are using the same property, but it is identifiable. And you use setters whenever validating input or modifying the data before storing. So if you're modifying the data like the way we did, it's going to help you by using a setter. All right, or else you can always go with normal methods also. Cool. All right, great. I'll close this chapter here, not the chapter, but the tutorial here. In the next tutorial, I'm going to talk about public, private, getter, setter, a very big table that I have prepared. I'll just talk about it so that it's pretty much clear when to use what. All right, great. I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.